Where do Washington-Moscow relations go from here? Let me turn to Kenneth Katzman, a senior analyst with the Congressional Research Service, which researches public policy for U.S. Congress. Ken, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
More than 700 staffers ordered out of Russia in various diplomatic missions. Are these cuts Putin demanding really significant, even by Cold War standards?
Thank you. And of course, I'm speaking in a personal capacity, not speaking for anybody. It is a very significant mandated reduction. It gets the U.S., I think, it's the biggest since the Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. So it certainly is a major response. However, let's remember, Vladimir Putin, he's not an idiot. He knows that Mr. Trump did not necessarily want to sign this legislation. He understands that President Trump himself, if he were on his own, wants to improve relations with Russia. So I think the response is going to be muted relative to what's being reported.
You know, it's interesting you say that because a former Defense Department official, this is what he had to say. He said the Trump-Putin bromance will probably continue because Putin would know Trump was backed into a corner by Congress. So
Exactly.
You agree with that?
Absolutely. They will see it that way. Absolutely.
What are the implications, Ken, if the relationship goes further downhill? Partnerships, agreements to fight against ISIL?
Well, absolutely. It could become a huge trade war. It could become proxy wars all over the place. The U.S. and Russia first now starting to cooperate a little bit in Syria. And there has been some stabilization where they've agreed to have these ceasefires. That could unravel, and we could go back to major fighting. The U.S. and Russia could get into some sort of a proxy war in Syria. Any permutation is possible. Ukraine could heat up even further. The Baltics. Anything is possible if it escalates.
And where do you begin to open a path, build trust, and really rebuild this relationship?
Well, again, there's been so much that's happened. It's very difficult to instantly rebuild it. But I think, again, looking at Syria, for example, starting small, agreements to some ceasefires. If Mr. Putin does push President Assad out of the presidency in Syria, that would be a show of good faith.
But is that going to really happen?
Well, it could. Again, Putin, I think, wants to end the fighting there, too. And as long as Assad's there, fighting may continue. So there could be shows of good faith. These sanctions, let me explain, they give the president a lot of, they mandate a lot, but it's still up to President Trump to determine who has violated the sanctions. President Trump can sit on it and say, I have not determined any individual or entity has violated the sanctions, and he would not impose any penalties. So there's still a lot of discretion that President Trump has not to really impose any real penalties for these sanctions.
Ken, when you look at the relationship with the United States, between the United States and Russia, what is your biggest concern when you look ahead to this relationship?
The biggest concern really is lack of cooperation on major issues, conflict issues particularly. Look at North Korea. The United States really needs Russia now to cooperate on North Korea. North Korea is becoming a major national security problem. They have an ICBM that can hit major cities in the United States. If the U.S.-Russia relationship is in disarray, is in a rift, we can't count on Russian cooperation on North Korea. So it's these other areas of the world that's really the problem.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Kenneth Katzman, thank you so much for being on the program.